Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really provocative argument from our source material. It looks at the, let's say, very complex power dynamic between parents and kids, and it frames the whole thing through the lens of property.
Okay, let's just dive right in with the core idea here, the philosophical starting point. This one quote, "Being born is the ultimate act of not consenting to anything," is really the key that unlocks this entire argument. So what does that actually mean?
Well, the argument kicks off by framing the act of birth itself as this profound moment of non-consent. According to the source, think about it. No one gets to choose their parents, or the time period they're born into, or their family's bank account. We're all essentially just dropped into existence with zero say in the matter. And this concept, right here, is the bedrock for everything that follows. It completely reframes the parent-child relationship from the get-go. It suggests that because a child never consented to even exist, parents have this unique and massive responsibility that goes way beyond just ownership or control.
So, if we're starting from that premise of non-consent, the next logical question has to be, why do people have children in the first place? And according to this source, the motives behind becoming a parent are absolutely critical. They basically determine how a child ends up being treated.
So the source material splits parental intent into two, completely different camps. On one side, you've got selfish parenting. This is where a child is seen as, an extension of the parent's ego, or maybe a tool to get something the parent wants. But then on the other side, there's selfless parenting, where the focus is totally on the child's own happiness and their own goals.
And to make this super clear, the analysis gives us some pretty concrete and kind of harsh examples of what it means by selfish. You've got everything from the historical, like having kids just to have more hands on the family farm, to the deeply personal, like using a kid to get back at an ex, or to live out the dreams that a parent never got to achieve themselves.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The source makes this crucial distinction. Just having good intentions isn't enough. A parent can have selfless motives, but still be what the source calls unconscious. So think of a parent who says, "Oh, follow your dreams," but then offers zero actual guidance or support to make that happen. The source basically calls this out as a kind of lazy, passive failure that ends up hurting the child anyway. From there, the argument zooms out. It moves away from just personal motivations and looks at the big systemic structures that it claims lock in this whole property dynamic. And it points a finger at two major institutions, the family unit and the school system.
And it really hones in on this specific age range, from 13 to 18. This is highlighted as that incredibly important time when a young person is trying to forge their own identity. But, the source argues, the very systems that are supposed to be supporting them often completely fail to help them transition into being an adult. So first, the analysis goes after what it calls the controlling family system. This is a home life where expressing your real feelings, especially if they challenge the family story, gets you punished. The source even uses this really provocative phrase, mini North Koreas, to describe families where secrecy and control just completely stifle a kid's emotional growth. And paired right alongside that is a critique of the school system, which the source labels with an incredibly strong term, fascistic. The argument here is that by just focusing on memorizing facts and spitting them back out on high-stakes tests, schools punish mistakes instead of encouraging learning. In this view, they're not preparing kids for a free society. They're preparing them for conformity. Now, this whole critique of our social systems of family and school, it all leads to the central metaphor that the source material uses, and it's designed to really show the real-world consequences of this kind of upbringing.
The source asks us to start with a really simple image, a bird. It's born into the world with this innate natural ability to fly. It represents pure, unrealized potential for freedom.
But then, that potential gets shut down. The bird is put in a cage, its wings are clipped, its whole world becomes regimented, controlled by some outside force, and its natural ability to fly is just systematically taken away.
And this, right here, brilliantly gets to the core question of the entire argument. If you finally open that cage door for a bird that doesn't even know how to fly anymore, what does freedom even mean? Can you actually be free if you don't have the capacity to use your freedom? So the conclusion of the analysis is that true freedom isn't just about not having restrictions. It argues that freedom is basically meaningless if you don't have a foundation of resources, support, and healthy relationships, the very things it claims that are denied to children who are treated like property. So after all that heavy critique, what's the solution? Well, the source doesn't just tear things down. It actually offers a 3-step guide to what it calls conscious parenting. First step,
Guide, don't judge. Help them learn from their mistakes instead of just tearing them down. Second, never ever say, do as I say, not as I do. And third, and this might be the most important one, you have to actually study your kids. Take the time to really understand who they are as individual people.
And the source material leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought. It's a blunt reminder of the argument's central theme that bringing a new human life into the world carries a responsibility that is just fundamentally different from ownership. It really leaves you to think about what it truly means to raise a person, not a possession.